welcome back to MJT Reviews. Me, Mitchell James, calling, and I'm joined with Australian composer musicologist extraordinaire Elysse Turner. Hi, Elysse.
The one and only.
Yeah, and then some Elysse Turner's like, ahem, it's me as well.
Well, if you're also an extraordinaire of music and like composition and other random things, please comment below. I'd love to get in touch. We'll fight to the death.
Okay, excellent. I don't even know what's next.
Portugal.
Oh, this one.
Oh my goodness. I apologize for the piano bit.
So were you looking at piano covers just to get a gist of how you're going to play it yourself?
Yeah. I didn't actually just look at piano covers. I actually saw a lot of really cool covers of this. Sorry, did you want to do an intro before I start chatting?
We're talking about Portugal, if you didn't realize.
Yeah, just in case it wasn't clear. But yeah, I looked at a bunch of different covers for this song because it's a really unique piece. And I was one of the first ones I listened to. And the first time I listened to it, I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to analyze this. How am I going to do that? And like, we've put it at the end because I said to Mitch, you got to put it later. I don't have time. I don't know how. I can't. And so I did a lot of research on this song in terms of background, who the guy is. I don't remember half of it, but I did a lot of research because I'm like, where do I even start? I had no idea. And so I watched a lot of really cool covers of this piece. One of my favorites was a piano cover, which I linked to you, Mitch. And there was also really like, there's this guy who did a really good cover who helped me choose one of the instruments that was in it. He did it on acoustic guitar and Portuguese guitar, which both have different sounds, but I'll get into that in a bit. And there was another one. I can't remember what it was anymore. But what was really cool is that Conan Osiris, which is his stage name, I can't remember his real name, was commenting and liking each of these videos and sort of giving his approval. And I thought that was a really nice thing to be doing.
Yeah.
So that was cool. I appreciated that from a viewer perspective. I'm like, oh, cool. This guy's getting in with his fans and he's watching it and he's liking it. And that's exciting to see. Totally. I'm not going to do a cover though, because I wouldn't know where to start. It's just like the review.
So I'm very curious to know your musical breakdown.
Okay.
You might need some clarity to this.
Maybe it'll just make you a bit more confused. So the easy answer is that we have a male singer and we have one language, which is Portuguese. I thought that was cool. I quite like Portuguese. It's one of the languages I've attempted to learn in the past, so that didn't faze me. It probably helped me remember the song a bit more because one of the things I've had issues with in the past is if it was only one language, I had trouble remembering what it was, and that's pretty consistent throughout my rankings, as you'll see as well, because, well, we'll get to that later. But Portuguese is something I have learnt, and so I think that bumped this song up a bit in my books. In terms of key and tonality, this song has microtones. So what that basically means is that instead of having your standard Western scale with equal tempered notes, which means each note is a similar distance apart to make sure that it all sounds good together by Western standards, you've got some microtones, which means instead of this being the smallest interval, which is a semitone, you have something more like this. And you've got that weird shift in between until you get to. So you've got multiple shades of note in between those two tones. That made it really difficult to analyze, but that is the reason that when you first listen to it, you're like, what? This doesn't sound quite right. That is the jarring feeling. It is the fact that you're not used to hearing this tuning, this scale system. That is, of course, not a weird thing though, because the Western system that we're so used to now was not common back in the day. They used to have systems based on resonant frequencies. So instead of your scale being the one that we hear now, it would be slightly different because the notes would be tuned to resonate with each other. I'm going to not go into a big thing about that, because I could go on forever. But it just means that this is a different tuning system. It's a different scale system. It's something that we're not quite used to, but it doesn't mean it's not valid. In fact, there's whole groups of like music researchers and musicians who actually look into microtonal instruments and microtonal music. I know I went to University of Wollongong. My senior lecturer of music, she was full in on the microtones. She had microtonal flutes and stuff. There was a guy I studied with. He's made himself a microtonal bass and a microtonal guitar, which he plays at gigs in Wollongong. So it's not a bad thing. It's just something you need to sort of get used to and get your head around the idea of. But it does make it really intimidating when you're sort of comparing the song to Western tuning systems, which makes it easier to understand for you guys. So in terms of vocal range, with that in mind, the closest that we get to, approximately, because of the microtones, I can't identify what the microtones were, we are about F sharp 3, so to... Oh, sorry, I gotta stop my pitch bending. F sharp 3 to E4, which isn't huge. It's a really small range. It's like just over half an octave. But with the microtones in there, you've got more notes available to be used. And then our key is E minor-ish. Sorry, that was a really long rant to explain that.
Did you know that as soon as you heard it, you knew about the microtones?
Yes, yeah. I'm just like, oh, this is going to be a pain to analyze because the tone, I just don't know how to like name those notes. I don't have that specific skill, that specific interest in research. And so like I can say, oh, I identify those are microtones. And then that's about it. There weren't too many. For the most part, it did stick to a classic E minor scale, but then there were some thrown in, especially on the Portuguese guitar and the vocal range. But I'll get to that in a minute when we look at the instruments. In terms of time signature, we're in a 4/4, which is pretty standard with 123 beats per minute allegro, which is great. It gives us something to relate to understand that we aren't super alienated by. We also have what I've estimated to be 4 chords. I did take these chords off the piano cover I watched, though, because I did not know where to start with the original song because of all the microtones. They just clash when I'm trying to do it by ear. I do a lot of my analysis by ear, and so I'm just like, oh my goodness, these are the wrong notes. Let's listen to this pianist who is in the same tuning as me. We'll see what he does. So our 4 chords are E minor as our first chord, and then D major, C major, and then B minor. And B minor is the odd one in this because E minor is our first chord, D is our 7th chord, C is our 6th chord, so minor, major, major, and then our 5th chord is actually fine. That's not weird. I take it back. B minor is not odd. B minor is normal. But it sounds really good because you have this sort of descending sort of pattern going. What's the melody? Of course,
I'm just impressed you're giving me a melody.
Well, I did spend a lot of time on this song. I don't know what the words are. I can't tell you what they were, but that was your sort of vibe. And so while those chords might not be 100% accurate, those chords did work with the melody. So there's my disclaimer. If you can actually figure out if they were wrong or right and you have an alternate theory of what the chords were, please let me know. I'd be really interested to hear what you think. Especially if you were one of the people who has created a cover, be like, you're wrong, here's why, here's what it actually is. I'd love to know. That'd be a really cool thing for me to find out. So comment below if that's the case. And then our instruments. So we have our vocals. And as I said a bit earlier, the vocals have microtones in it. And the reason for that is because we are not limited by our Western tuning in our vocals. We often slide. That's a really common thing. So we'll go from way, and I got microtones in that because it's just easy. It's natural. It's not something which you'd be like, oh no, we're going to step. Dun, dun, dun. Like, that's just not how you sing. You sing with the slides across and up to the note. And so you have lots of microtones in that. And that's an easier one to sort of work with in terms of microtones. We have some bass, which I think is a bass guitar, backing vocals in the breakdown, which are female, got a really hip hop sort of vibe with those backing vocals. We've got some electric drums, and then we've got some Portuguese guitar, which I originally thought was like maybe a zither instrument, like something which is not necessarily super Western, a bit stringed, but also not too odd. But one of the videos I watched had this guy playing a Portuguese guitar, and I'm like, that's the sound, that's 100% it. And so I changed it. It's now a Portuguese guitar. That is the one it is. It just sounded the same. So that was kind of cool. One of the things I think is also important there, though, is the tuning of the Portuguese guitar. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that is tuned in microtones, which helps the song have that microtonal thing. And then in terms of the form, we've got an intro for 4 bars, verse 1 for 8 bars, chorus for 8 bars, a breakdown for 8 bars, verse 2 for 8, chorus for 8, bridge for 8, breakdown for 8. So pretty similar structure with a bridge in the middle. And then verse 3 / instrumental. So it is an instrumental, but it's got the same structure and sort of melodic sort of thing used in the instruments for 8 bars. A chorus for 8 bars, a breakdown for 8 bars, and then finally an outro for 9 bars. So it's a really weird song. It's a bit out there, but it's kind of not terrible. Like, it grows on you once you get past the microtonal aspects, I think. Anything you want to add before we move on to general comments?
Oh, good. So yeah, once again, this music video is just a live performance in the national selection.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of it all?
Well, I thought his mask was a bit odd. He looked a bit like a cartoon villain, or a bit like Soooo with, like, you know, the round cheeks, except, you know, less skin because it's gold and it doesn't cover his whole face. So, you know, that's cool. I didn't quite understand what was with his hand. Like, it looks kind of cool, but it was also a bit weird. Same with the backup dancer. And the white outfits made them look a bit like birds. I don't know if any of that has cultural significance or if it's related to the dead, because that's what this song's about. So that's perhaps, you know, where it comes from. His backup singer, dancer, looks like he has some ballet training, which is kind of cool. But it's also mixed with this hip-hop vibe, which is embedded in the song with the way he's done it. So he's got some moves which are like, oh, well, you're doing point with ballet, which is standing on your toes, literally. But he's doing it in sneakers, and he's sort of got this really jarring hip-hop sort of eclectic dance moves, which also at some point, his breakdown dance reminded me a bit of like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but more elegant. I've got a video for you if you want to link that in. The rose in the background's a really nice motif throughout. And then the other comment I sort of made was his backup dancer fell over at 1 minute and 14 seconds, or 19 seconds, I can't quite read my writing. Was that intentional? Because at the end it looked intentional, but there it did not. It looks like he just tripped.
Yeah, at the beginning. 19.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So
I just saw that video, very funny.
But you kind of see what I mean, though. Like, he looks more elegant in the on stage, but it's that sort of similar. Like, yep, we're gonna do some funkier moves, which are a bit weird and out there, which is not too odd considering the song. So, yeah. The song lyrics. Do you know what the title means? Pop quiz.
No, the only thing I know about this is something to do with mobile phones.
Well, you are correct. That is what it means. It means mobile phone, or cell phone rather. And the vibe of the message is that he wants to call someone who is, I think, passed away, but he can't reach them. Whenever he calls them, his cell phone breaks. So he's fixated on this loss can't pay attention to anyone else. Again, though, he does move on. So it's this story of trying to call the dead and speak to the dead, and being so fixated on this, but being unable to reach them. So I think that was sort of the vibe of the message. Yeah. But overall, the song itself is like, while it sounds jarring to Western standards, because the tuning's a bit off, it sounds kind of cool. They've kept it really bare. They have these really strong hip hop vibes throughout. And so while you've got these cultural elements with the microtones, you've got these really cool hip hop elements which we can all relate to, with the breakdown, with the female vocals, and the minimal, like, bare bones instruments. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I don't know how people are going to respond to this one. At the end of the day, if they only listen to it once, I think it's not likely to do as well, because it does take a bit of time just to get past that initial shock of, oh, this is not the sort of song I'm used to listening to. But otherwise, I think it's a pretty good piece. Like, it's got skill.
Cool. All right. Awesome. Anything else you wanted to say about Portugal?
Not that I'm aware of. I hope that was to the satisfaction of the viewers who have been eagerly awaiting this video, because I know they're out there. They've been commenting.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, all the Portuguese viewers. Comment, because we want to know what you thought of this.
And we love you, even if we maybe not used to your music.
All right. Yeah, well, thanks a lot, Elysse. I'm here with Stuart Waters from ESC Fan TV, talking about Portugal. Stuart, I've heard you mention Portugal a few times throughout this series. So what's your actual take on Portugal?
Love Portugal's national final, first of all. It was by far the most diverse national final this year. I thought the songs were really good. They chose Conan. Conan was not the favourite going into the national final. NBC was, with the song Equality, which was beautiful. And Pugma and Surma were also likely to win. And this came out of left field, maybe. Became the fan favourite very, very rapidly. And leading up to the final, looked a dead cert to win. Just sort of out of nowhere. And yeah, it's a song about mobile phones. And put down your mobile phone and devices, have a conversation, and live your life. That's essentially the message of this song. I quite like the message, actually, first of all, because I think the message is quite powerful, and not your everyday, let's talk about love or hate, as you know, as Cyprus will have you, Iceland will talk about hate this year, and Denmark talk about love. You know, so you've got some real contrast, and then you've got Portugal out of nowhere talking about a sodding mobile phone. So it's quite nice to have a bit of diversity this year. But not everyone will like it. You know, we talk about Iceland being Marmite. Marmite phrase we use in the UK to describe something that's kind of you either love it or you hate it. That's really relevant to Portugal. Some will absolutely detest this song just because musically it's all over the place. Others will love it. I love it, and I get it. I like him. I like the performance. Visually, it's great. I worry that the general viewer won't vote for this, but it kind of feels like it should be in the final just by the whole sort of the whole message and the stage performance and his voice and the way he performs it. It's great, and I love Portugal. I've fallen in love with that, with Lisbon. It was such a wonderful Eurovision last year. I don't want to see Portugal down the bottom again. They were very unfortunate to finish last in the final last year. Felt very sad for them because it was a great song. I don't want them to finish anywhere near the bottom. I would hope Portugal qualifies.
And it seemed like you really wanted them to, you were backing them to combat the trolls or something at the beginning of the year.
Was I?
I feel like you're like, oh, I want Conan to win just to annoy all the haters or something.
Oh, no, originally I wanted Pugma and Surma to win because I just thought it was so weird. It's like Bjork from yesteryear, and I absolutely loved it. I played it all the time. And then NBC Equality, I thought was a really good ballad. But I was just in awe of a country that's just broken the barriers musically for Eurovision. They hadn't gone for... how can I describe this? They hadn't gone and said, let's go to Scandinavia and pay for a load of songwriters to come and write songs for our national final. They were authentic Portuguese songs. And I really appreciated that. No songs in English, all in Portuguese, all musically traditional and modern Portuguese. You could tell they were written by a Portuguese songwriter. And I love that. I really think that's important. We lose a bit of that. In my country, I feel that strongly as well. We go all over the world looking for songwriters because our own songwriters still find Eurovision a bit of a taboo subject. And it's a shame. It really is.
Yeah.
And other countries do it too. We know this as fans. You get the same songwriters work across Europe, penning songs and then sending them over to Belarus, to Lithuania, to Denmark, to wherever else, to the UK. And you end up with, in some cases, not all, a pretty generic sounding Eurovision entry. That's why I like Portugal. I think that's actually why I fell in love with Portugal's national final, because there was just nothing like it.
Yeah. Do you think overall this year there's not that you can't really pick a generic sound as much as other years? Or you think there's still like that average section of the contest?
Yeah, I think Russia I would call that a bit generic, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, diverse musicality, I would say something like Slovenia is very diverse. Portugal's very diverse. Iceland's diverse. And then you're into the same type songwriters, or they're connected in some way for the likes of Switzerland, Cyprus. And you've got similar sounds there to you have with Frege last year. Similar type songwriters. Yeah, so you to some degree there's some you get some generic type sounds there, type songs, but Portugal's very different, and Iceland was very different.
Yeah.
Australia was quite diverse in some ways too.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Stuart, for your take on Portugal. It's been great.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Do you have a song for this? What's just the intro?
I have to try and see if there is.
Oh.
What do you think?
Oh man, very impressive. I don't know about this genre, but is it Portuguese traditional music, or I have no idea, but it's very interesting, But the thing is, the background music was impressive, but it kind of overlaps his man singing, his main voice. So his voice doesn't really stand out, but instead the background music was a thing that was dominant. It was create a very exciting atmosphere. We can see the audience is very into that, and the way they perform, although it's not very popular to me, but man, it's very eye catchy, and the lighting and stuff. Yeah, it creates a good overall performance.
Do you understand what the message is at all?
No, I have no idea. So.
I don't know how you missed it, because it's clearly about mobile phones.
Mobile phones. I thought it was a commercial for Nike.
What do you think about the shoes? Because you're a shoe person.
Yeah, man. It was an emerging shoes at the moment.
Oh, you know of them?
Yeah. So people, the young bloods, they've been rocking those shoes, regularly. But the thing is, it doesn't quite fit in with their outfits. But when you look at their outfit, you couldn't think they were wear Nike. So man, that's very interesting. It's actually surprised me a lot.
Who will make the cut? Who will win our hearts? MJT.